The world was left speechless when pop icon Madonna recently shared a spine-chilling experience that has everyone questioning the afterlife. After a near-death encounter, she claims to have seen what lies beyond, and her message is not one of peace, but of a terrifying warning. In this video, we delve into the cryptic details of her journey to the other side, the shocking revelations she brought back, and the profound implications it might hold for us all. Whether you're a believer or a skeptic, you won't want to miss this story. Prepare yourself. What Madonna has to share might just change everything you thought you knew about life and death. Madonna's near-death experience began during a routine day that quickly escalated into a life-threatening ordeal. The 65-year-old superstar, known for her resilience and unbreakable spirit, was unexpectedly struck by a sudden illness that no one saw coming. It started as what seemed like mere exhaustion. Understandable, given her demanding career and lifestyle. She had been preparing for a massive world tour, rehearsing day and night, and pushing her body to the limit. Yet this time, her exhaustion wasn't typical. Something far more sinister was at play. Reports from those close to her reveal that she complained of severe dizziness and a sharp pain in her head, followed by a sudden collapse. Paramedics were called immediately, and she was rushed to the hospital. The diagnosis was severe septic shock, a life-threatening condition that can be caused by a bacterial infection entering the bloodstream. Friends and family were notified as she slipped into unconsciousness, and many believed they were about to say their final goodbyes. As doctors fought to stabilize her, Madonna's condition worsened. Her heart rate dropped dangerously low, and she was placed on life support. In those critical moments, as her body hovered on the brink of death, something extraordinary happened. Those around her reported a sudden change in the room's atmosphere, a coldness that swept over the area, a sensation as though something unseen had entered the space. Nurses described feeling a chill down their spines as if they were not alone. It was in this liminal space, suspended between life and death, that Madonna claims to have crossed the veil into another realm. She later recounted feeling her spirit lift away from her body, as if she were being pulled upward beyond the physical plane. The sensation was unlike anything she had ever experienced, a strange mixture of weightlessness and overwhelming pressure. She described seeing her own body from above, lying still on the hospital bed, surrounded by frantic doctors and crying family members. Despite the chaos below, she felt a strange calmness. The physical pain was gone, replaced by an eerie sense of detachment. It was as if she were being guided by an unseen force, pulling her away from everything she knew, deeper into an unknown space. As she drifted further from her body, the world around her began to dissolve into darkness. The hospital room faded away, replaced by a vast, empty void. It was not the serene tunnel of light so often described in near-death experiences. Instead, it was a place of unsettling silence, an expanse of nothingness that seemed to stretch on forever. Yet, she did not feel alone. There was a presence there, something intangible, yet undeniably real. It enveloped her, filling her with a sensation she could only describe as cold dread. Madonna was no stranger to pushing boundaries and exploring the unknown, both in her music and personal life. Yet this experience was unlike anything she had ever imagined. In this void, she felt as though she was not in control. The force that had pulled her here continued to guide her deeper into the unknown. She described it as a journey through a tunnel, but instead of a bright light at the end, she saw shadowy figures moving in the distance, They were not human, but vague, indistinct shapes, like wisps of smoke, twisting and contorting in the darkness. As she moved closer, these figures seemed to beckon her, whispering in a language she couldn't understand. The sounds were like echoes, distorted and eerie, reverberating in her mind rather than her ears. The presence of these entities filled her with an overwhelming sense of foreboding. It was as if they were trying to convey a message, but it was cloaked in cryptic, almost demonic tones. She felt her soul being pulled toward them, a sensation that was both magnetic and terrifying. It was here, in this liminal space, that she realized she had crossed over into a realm beyond life, a place she was not meant to see. This otherworldly space was not filled with the blissful visions of loved ones or angels, as many accounts describe. Instead, it felt like a distorted version of reality, a shadowy mirror of the world she knew. Madonna later explained that she felt as though she was standing at the edge of something far greater than herself, a vast and ancient place that defied description. The figures surrounding her seemed to be guardians of this realm, entities that watched over the threshold between life and death. They were neither welcoming nor hostile, simply observing, as if she were an intruder in a place where she did not belong. The journey felt like an eternity, yet it was only moments in real time. She felt herself being pulled further into this realm, towards a point of no return. The sensation of being watched grew stronger, and she realized that the entities were not just observing her. They were judging her. A voice, not heard with her ears, but felt deep within her consciousness, whispered her name. It was a voice unlike any she had ever heard, ancient and otherworldly, resonating through her very being. It asked her one simple question: "Why are you here?" The question sent a shockwave through her, jolting her out of the trance-like state. It was as though the voice carried with it the weight of eons, a gravity that was inescapable. Before she could respond, the entities began to show her visions, flashes of events, places, and faces she did not recognize. She saw glimpses of what looked like the future, chaotic and apocalyptic, filled with suffering and despair. There were images of natural disasters, cities in ruins, and a sky filled with dark, swirling clouds. It was as if she were being shown a warning, a glimpse into a dark fate that awaited humanity. Madonna felt a deep, primal fear grip her as the visions continued. It was a fear unlike anything she had ever experienced, a visceral sensation that made her feel small and insignificant. In the darkness, she realized that this was not a place of eternal peace or rest. It was a realm of revelation, a place where souls came to understand truths they were not prepared for. The entities seemed to be communicating something urgent, a message that she needed to take back with her. As suddenly as it had started, the experience ended. She felt herself being yanked backward, as if she were falling at great speed. The darkness around her dissolved, replaced by the familiar sights and sounds of the hospital room. Her eyes snapped open and she gasped for air, the beeping of medical machines and the voices of doctors rushing back into her awareness. She was alive, but profoundly changed. The journey had lasted mere moments, but it felt like she had been gone for an eternity. Madonna's first words upon regaining consciousness were mumbled and disjointed, but one phrase stood out clearly. "They showed me. I've seen it." The medical staff, unsure of what she was referring to, assumed she was delirious from the medication and trauma. However, her close friends and family noticed a drastic change in her demeanor. She seemed shaken, her eyes filled with a mixture of fear and determination they had never seen before. It was clear that whatever she experienced had left a lasting impression, one that she was desperate to share, but also deeply afraid of. In the days following her recovery, Madonna was unusually silent, retreating from the public eye and even from her loved ones. She began writing feverishly, filling journals with cryptic notes and sketches. She confided in only a select few, describing her journey to the other side and the disturbing message she had received. It was not the comforting vision of a loving afterlife, but a dire warning, a revelation that, if true, could change the way we understand the very fabric of existence. In the days following her return from the brink of death, Madonna seemed haunted, carrying an aura of heavy, unspoken knowledge. Her closest confidants noticed the change immediately. Gone was the fierce, confident star, known for pushing boundaries and embracing controversy. In her place was a woman visibly altered, as if she had glimpsed something no one should ever see. The pop icon, usually eager to share her experiences and insights, was initially reluctant to speak of what she had witnessed. But as the days wore on, she felt compelled to break her silence. The weight of the message she had received was too much to bear alone. When she finally opened up about the encounter, those who heard her account were left speechless. What Madonna described was far from the serene visions of heaven or the comforting presence of loved ones. Instead, she recounted a harrowing experience that felt like a direct communication from something ancient and powerful, a force that carried an ominous message for humanity. The message was not one of hope or love, but of an urgent, almost apocalyptic warning. She felt as though she had been chosen, or perhaps cursed, to deliver this disturbing prophecy, one that filled her with an overwhelming sense of dread. Madonna described the moment when she first heard the voice in the otherworldly realm. It wasn't like hearing a sound with her ears. It was more akin to a deep, resonating vibration that penetrated her very being. The voice was neither male nor female, neither kind nor cruel. It was simply there, vast and powerful, filling the emptiness around her. It was as though the voice belonged to the universe itself, speaking from the fabric of creation. It did not greet her or offer comfort. Instead, it began speaking with an urgency that made her feel as though time was running out. "Listen," it commanded, "for there is not much time." The voice conveyed a message that was fragmented, delivered in cryptic phrases that felt more like raw emotions than coherent sentences. She struggled to comprehend it, but the essence of what she understood left her trembling. It spoke of a darkness spreading across the world, a shadow that was not just a physical phenomenon, but a spiritual one as well. It was a warning about the consequences of humanity's collective actions, the relentless pursuit of material wealth, and the disregard for the natural world. The voice conveyed that the earth was crying out in pain, and that a great reckoning was coming if humanity did not change its ways. Madonna was shown a series of visions, each more disturbing than the last. They were not like dreams or the fantastical imagery of the subconscious. They felt real, like memories of events that had not yet happened. She saw scenes of chaos and destruction, fires raging across forests, oceans rising and swallowing cities, skies filled with smoke and ash. She witnessed people running in panic, their faces contorted in fear as the ground beneath them cracked open. The visions seemed to depict a future where the natural balance had been irrevocably disrupted and the world was plunging into turmoil. But it was not just the physical world that was in danger. The voice spoke of a spiritual crisis, a loss of the collective soul, driven by humanity's growing disconnection from each other and the divine. Madonna saw images of people staring blankly at screens, their faces devoid of emotion, as if they were hypnotized. It was as though their very essence had been drained, leaving them as hollow shells. The message conveyed a deep concern about technology and its role in isolating people from one another, creating a world where genuine human connection was fading away, replaced by a digital illusion. Madonna struggled to make sense of these fragmented images, feeling a deep sense of helplessness as they washed over her. She asked the voice what could be done, how this grim future could be avoided. The answer she received was as chilling as the visions themselves. It may already be too late. The voice explained that the path humanity was on had been set in motion long ago, and reversing it would require a monumental shift in consciousness, a collective awakening that seemed almost impossible given the current state of the world. The voice then imparted a final, cryptic message that left Madonna feeling more disturbed than ever. It spoke of a great silence that would soon fall over the earth, a silence unlike anything humanity had ever experienced. This silence was not just the absence of sound, it was the absence of life, a profound stillness that would signal the end of an era. The voice warned that this silence would be humanity's doing, the result of choices made without regard for the future. It was a stark and terrifying prophecy, one that suggested the end of civilization as we know it. Madonna was overwhelmed by what she was being shown. She felt as though her soul were being torn apart by the gravity of the message. She pleaded with the entities to tell her why she was chosen to receive this vision. "Because you will speak," the voice replied. "You have the power to reach many. But will they listen?" The question echoed in her mind, filling her with a sense of responsibility and fear. The voice faded, but the words lingered, imprinted on her consciousness. It was not a request. It was a mandate. She had been given this vision for a reason, and the burden of that reason now lay squarely on her shoulders. When Madonna returned to the physical world, the message still resonated within her, like a ringing in her ears that wouldn't stop. It was as if a part of her had not fully returned, left behind in that dark, echoing space. The warning she received was not something she could ignore, and she began to realize that sharing it would be both her duty and her curse. As she tried to convey the experience to those around her, she was met with skepticism and disbelief. Some suggested it was merely a hallucination brought on by the trauma of her near-death experience. Others, however, saw the fear in her eyes and knew that whatever she had witnessed was profoundly real to her. Madonna's inner circle urged her to take time to recover, to rest and regain her strength before going public with such a wild story. But she felt an urgency she could not explain, as though time itself was slipping away. She began to write down everything she could remember, filling pages with descriptions of the voice, the visions, and the warning she had been given. She knew that sharing this message would come at a personal cost, potentially affecting her career and reputation. Yet the thought of staying silent was even more terrifying. If there was even a chance that what she had seen was true, she felt she had no choice but to speak out. In interviews following her recovery, Madonna tried to explain the experience without sounding too fantastical. But it was clear that she was struggling to convey the depth of what she had felt. Her voice would falter, her hands would tremble, and she would pause as if the weight of the memory was pressing down on her. She spoke of a darkness coming, a need for humanity to wake up and reconnect with each other, with the earth and with the divine. She warned that we were heading toward a point of no return, and that if we did not change our ways, the silence she had been shown would come. A silence that signified the end. The reactions were mixed. Some listeners were profoundly moved, sensing a truth in her words that they couldn't quite articulate. Others dismissed her claims as the ramblings of a woman traumatized by a brush with death. But the fear in her eyes, the genuine terror that flickered behind her words, lingered with those who heard her. It was as if she had brought back a piece of the darkness with her, a shadow that would never leave her side. As Madonna began to reveal her experience, the world around her seemed to react in waves of confusion, shock, and concern. Initially, those closest to her, her family, friends, and longtime collaborators, were divided in their response. Some were deeply worried about her mental state, while others were struck by the raw intensity of her account. They knew Madonna as a strong, fiercely independent woman who had faced countless challenges in her career. But this was different. There was a vulnerability to her now, a haunted look in her eyes that they had never seen before. It was clear she believed every word of what she was saying, and that alone was unsettling enough. Her children, who had always looked up to her as a pillar of strength and resilience, were taken aback. Lourdes, her eldest daughter, was reportedly the first to notice the shift in her mother's behavior. Lourdes described how Madonna, usually upbeat and engaged, had become distant and preoccupied, spending hours alone, writing feverishly in her journals or staring off into space, lost in thought. When she finally confided in her daughter, Lourdes was left speechless. The story Madonna shared was so outlandish, so far removed from the reality they knew, that it left her feeling helpless. Was this a side effect of trauma and medication, or had her mother truly experienced something supernatural? Madonna's younger children, Mercy, David, and the twins, were shielded from the full extent of her revelations. The family tried to keep things as normal as possible for them, maintaining a routine despite the growing tension. However, they too noticed something was amiss. Their mother was no longer her vibrant self. She was quieter, more introspective, and prone to moments of silence that stretched on uncomfortably. It was as if she had brought back a piece of the darkness she had witnessed, and it lingered around her like a shadow. Her close friends and collaborators faced a similar dilemma. Guy Oseari, her longtime manager and confidant, was reportedly one of the first people she shared her full experience with. He listened intently as she recounted the disturbing visions and the ominous message she had been given. Guy had seen Madonna at her most vulnerable before, during moments of career setbacks or personal crises. But this was different. She spoke with a conviction and fear that he found unsettling. It wasn't just the content of her message that disturbed him. It was the sheer certainty in her voice. He could tell that she wasn't just telling a story. She was reliving it with every word. There were heated discussions behind the scenes about what to do next. Some of her closest advisors suggested she keep quiet about the experience, warning that going public with such a bizarre and unsettling story could damage her reputation. After all, Madonna had spent decades crafting her image as a pop culture icon and a trendsetter. To suddenly pivot and claim to have received a prophetic message from beyond the grave could easily be seen as a sign of mental instability. It could lead to tabloid headlines mocking her, or worse, erode the trust and admiration her fans had for her. Despite these warnings, there were others in her circle who believed she had a responsibility to speak out. They argued that Madonna had built her career on challenging societal norms and speaking her truth, no matter how uncomfortable it made others. If she truly believed she had seen a vision of humanity's future, didn't she have a duty to share it? Her spiritual advisors and friends, who were more open to metaphysical experiences, urged her to follow her instincts. They believed she had been chosen for a reason, that her platform could reach millions, and that her message might awaken people to a greater truth. As the news of her experience began to leak, public reaction was swift and polarized. Social media lit up with speculation, ranging from genuine concern to outright ridicule. Fans who had followed her career for decades were split. Some expressed deep sympathy, believing that her near-death experience had left her with a profound, if frightening, insight. They rallied around her, flooding her with messages of support and urging others to take her words seriously. To these fans, Madonna was not just a pop star, she was a cultural icon who had often pushed the boundaries of spirituality and self-expression. If anyone could survive an encounter with the other side and come back with a message, it would be her. However, there were just as many skeptics, and their voices were loud. Detractors took to social media to mock her, claiming she had lost touch with reality. Some suggested it was a publicity stunt, a way to generate buzz for her upcoming projects. Others dismissed her story as the result of hallucinations brought on by medication and trauma. "Madonna has finally lost it," read one viral tweet, accompanied by a meme mocking her claims. The tabloids, always eager to sensationalize, ran headlines like "Madonna's Heaven Hoax" and "Queen of Pop" or "Prophet of Doom." The public response was a chaotic mix of belief, cynicism, and sensationalism, leaving little room for the nuanced conversation Madonna had hoped to spark. Madonna's celebrity friends and peers in the music industry also weighed in, though many chose their words carefully. Longtime friend and collaborator Rosie O'Donnell expressed concern, but was careful not to dismiss her experience outright. "I've known Madonna for decades," she said in an interview. "She's not one to make up stories like this. If she says she saw something, I believe she truly believes it." Other celebrities, however, were less sympathetic. Elton John, known for his candid remarks, reportedly told a close friend, "She's always been dramatic, but this is something else entirely." The reaction from spiritual leaders and religious communities was equally varied. Some saw her experience as a legitimate mystical encounter, akin to the visions described by saints and prophets throughout history. They praised her courage in speaking out and suggested that her message aligned with prophecies of a coming spiritual reckoning. Others, particularly those from more conservative religious backgrounds, were skeptical. They viewed her account as the product of a mind steeped in New Age beliefs, dismissing it as a distorted interpretation of her near-death experience. One prominent evangelical pastor even went so far as to say, "This is just another example of Hollywood's obsession with the supernatural and its rejection of true faith." Amid the chaos, Madonna found herself more isolated than ever before. She retreated from public view, cancelling appearances and taking a hiatus from her work to process what had happened. Friends noted that she seemed withdrawn, spending more time meditating, praying, and consulting with spiritual healers. She sought comfort in the teachings of various mystical traditions, trying to find meaning in the experience that had shaken her to her core. She began to question her own sanity at times, wondering if the visions she had seen were real, or if her mind had simply played tricks on her during those moments of unconsciousness. Despite her doubts, the fear she felt was real. The visions haunted her dreams, and the voice's final words echoed in her mind. Will they listen? It was a question she couldn't escape, and it became the driving force behind her next steps. She knew that by sharing her experience, she had opened herself up to ridicule and disbelief, but she also knew she couldn't stay silent. The urgency of the message weighed on her, pressing her to speak, to warn, even if it meant facing backlash and scorn. Her resolve only strengthened as time passed. She decided that no matter the cost, she would use her platform to share what she had seen and felt. Whether people believed her or not was beyond her control, but she had to try. For Madonna, this was not just about her career or her image anymore. It was about something far greater, something she felt deep in her soul. It was about the fate of the world, and she was determined to deliver the warning, even if it fell on deaf ears. The final chapter of Madonna's journey is a sobering reflection on what her disturbing experience might mean for us all. After sharing her story, she faced a wave of disbelief, skepticism, and concern. But that was only the beginning. The real impact of her message lies not in the initial shock it caused, but in the deeper questions it raises about the nature of existence, our collective choices, and the potential consequences of the path we are currently on. For Madonna, the vision she witnessed was not just a personal revelation. It was a call to action, a warning that could apply to every living soul on this planet. Madonna began speaking out more openly about her experience, granting a series of interviews and releasing a series of cryptic social media posts that hinted at the message she had received. She spoke about the need for a dramatic shift in the way humanity lives, emphasizing themes of unity, spiritual awakening, and a reconnection with the natural world. Her tone was urgent, as if she felt there was very little time left to change course. She described her vision as a crossroads moment, a choice between two futures, one filled with light and renewal, and the other a descent into darkness and silence. The message she brought back was layered and complex, touching on themes of environmental destruction, societal disintegration, and the loss of spiritual connection. One of the most striking parts of her revelation was the warning about the state of the planet. Madonna described a world on the brink of ecological collapse, plagued by natural disasters, extreme weather, and a rapidly destabilizing climate. She spoke with the fervor of a prophet, urging her followers to take the threat seriously. "The earth is crying out," she said in one interview. "We've pushed it to the breaking point, and now it's pushing back. What I saw was not just a vision, it was a glimpse into a possible future. And it's a future we must avoid at all costs." Environmental activists were quick to seize on her message, pointing to the alarming increase in wildfires, floods, and hurricanes in recent years as evidence that her warning was already coming true. They praised her for using her platform to draw attention to the climate crisis, even if her approach was unconventional. Greta Thunberg, the young climate activist, shared one of Madonna's posts, commenting, "Whether you believe her or not, the message is clear. We need to act, and we need to act now." Madonna's warnings about the Earth's destruction seemed to resonate deeply with a growing number of people who felt that time was running out to reverse the damage humanity has inflicted on the planet. However, her message went beyond environmental concerns. Madonna also spoke about a profound spiritual crisis, a loss of connection between people and the divine. She described the modern world as a place filled with distractions, where the constant noise of technology, social media, and consumerism drowns out the deeper callings of the soul. "We've lost our way," she said during an emotional interview. "We're so focused on what we can get, what we can consume, that we've forgotten what it means to simply be. The silence I was shown, it's not just the end of life. It's the end of everything meaningful, everything sacred." Her words struck a chord with many who had already begun to feel disillusioned with the fast-paced, materialistic culture of today. Spiritual communities, from New Age practitioners to more traditional religious groups, found common ground in her warning. They interpreted her vision as a sign that humanity was on the brink of a great awakening, a moment of reckoning where people would either choose to embrace a higher consciousness or fall deeper into a void of their own making. Madonna's message became a rallying cry for those who were already yearning for a return to simpler, more mindful living, free from the endless distractions of modern life. Yet, for all the spiritual and environmental implications of her message, there was another, darker layer that she only hinted at in her public statements. Madonna had seen a vision of a world not just plagued by natural disasters or a spiritual void, but of societal collapse and widespread chaos. She spoke in cryptic terms about a great silence that would fall over the earth, a silence that was more than the absence of sound. It was the silence of a world devoid of life, of a future where humanity's disconnection from each other and the natural world had led to an irreversible end. In private conversations with friends and family, she described it as a vision of a dystopian future, where cities lay in ruins and the remnants of civilization were shrouded in darkness. This part of her message was the hardest for her to share, and she struggled with how to convey it without sounding alarmist or sensational. But as she reflected on what she had seen, she realized that the warning was meant to be stark. "It's not a metaphor," she said in one of her most candid moments. "The silence I felt was real, and it was terrifying. It was the absence of everything, no voices, no music, no life. It was a void, and it felt final." Her voice trembled as she spoke, and those who heard her were left with a chill, sensing that she was speaking from a place of deep, unshakable fear. The idea of a great silence resonated with many, particularly in the wake of the global COVID-19 pandemic, when much of the world experienced a kind of collective pause. Streets were empty, businesses closed, and a strange, eerie stillness fell over cities that had once been vibrant and full of life. Some interpreted her message as a premonition of future pandemics, or perhaps even a warning of societal upheaval brought on by economic collapse, political unrest, or further environmental catastrophe. The Great Silence became a metaphor for the fragility of modern civilization, a reminder that the systems we rely on are far more delicate than we often realize. Despite the dire nature of her vision, Madonna's message was not entirely without hope. She spoke of a possible path forward, a way to avoid the fate she had seen. It would require a fundamental shift in the way humanity lives. A collective decision to prioritize compassion, connection, and sustainability over greed and division. She urged people to reconnect with nature, to find moments of stillness, and to listen to their inner voices. "The answers are within us," she said. "We all know what needs to be done, but we've been ignoring it for too long. It's time to wake up before it's too late." In the weeks and months following her revelations, there was a noticeable shift in the way people talked about her experience. The initial skepticism and ridicule began to give way to a more thoughtful dialogue. Podcasts, spiritual forums, and discussion groups popped up, analyzing her words and debating their significance. Was she truly a messenger, chosen to deliver a warning from beyond? Or was she simply a woman grappling with the trauma of a near-death experience, searching for meaning in a chaotic world? The debate raged on, but one thing was clear. Her story had struck a nerve, tapping into a deep, collective fear about the state of the world and the uncertain future that lay ahead. Madonna herself seemed to accept that not everyone would believe her, and that was okay. She had done her part by sharing what she had seen, and now it was up to the world to decide what to do with that knowledge. In her final public statement on the matter, she said simply, "I don't care if you believe me or not. My job was never to convince you. My job was to tell the truth as I saw it. What you do with that truth is up to you." As the years went on, the memory of her vision faded for some, while others clung to it as a prophecy yet to be fulfilled. Whether it was a warning, a hallucination, or something else entirely, the message she brought back from the brink of death left an indelible mark on those who heard it. It was a story that could not easily be forgotten, a haunting reminder that there are forces beyond our understanding, and that sometimes the veil between this world and the next is thinner than we realize. You said, is there anything disturbing about a message that she received about heaven? ChatGPT said, yes, Madonna's account of what she experienced in her near-death state included a profoundly unsettling message about heaven itself, a revelation that starkly contrasted the peaceful, comforting visions often described by those who claim to have had similar encounters. Instead of the traditional imagery of a serene, blissful paradise filled with loved ones, Madonna's vision of heaven carried a disturbing twist. It was not a place of eternal peace, but rather a realm that felt cold, detached, and deeply unsettling. In her own words, Madonna described heaven as an empty promise, a concept that humanity has clung to in order to avoid facing the truth of their own existence. What she witnessed was not the radiant, welcoming light of loved ones waiting on the other side, but a space that seemed eerily indifferent. There were no familiar faces or joyous reunions. Instead, she found herself in a vast, sterile expanse, a place that felt more like a void than a sanctuary. It was as if the heaven she encountered had been hollowed out, its essence drained by centuries of false expectations and illusions. Madonna described hearing a voice that seemed to echo through this void, a voice that was calm yet carried an undercurrent of something darker, like a warning. The voice conveyed a message that heaven was not what we have been led to believe. It was not a realm of eternal reward or blissful rest, but a mirror reflecting the souls that enter it. It is not what you think, the voice told her. Heaven is not a gift given freely. It is what you bring with you. For many, it is an empty place because they arrive with empty hearts. This revelation left Madonna shaken, as it suggested that heaven, rather than being a destination of divine grace, was instead a projection of the collective human spirit. And right now, that spirit was lacking. The most disturbing part of the message was the implication that humanity's current path was leading to a heaven devoid of meaning. Madonna saw flashes of countless souls wandering aimlessly, lost in a vast, featureless expanse. There were no angels, no golden gates, no sense of divine love enveloping the place. Instead, it felt like a waiting room that stretched on infinitely, filled with a quiet, oppressive silence. The souls she glimpsed seemed confused and disoriented, as if they had been expecting something else, a beautiful paradise, a reunion with loved ones, but instead found themselves in a space that offered no answers, no comfort. The voice told her, "This is the heaven created by a world that has forgotten how to love, how to connect. It is a reflection of what you have become." It was a chilling statement, suggesting that heaven was not a divine creation, but rather a manifestation of the collective human psyche. The more humanity drifted away from compassion, empathy, and true connection, the more hollow this afterlife became. Madonna felt an overwhelming sadness, realizing that the place she had entered was not a realm of fulfillment, but a place where souls lingered in an eternal state of unfulfilled expectation. The voice also hinted at a hidden truth, that heaven, as a concept, had been manipulated over time, used as a tool to control and pacify people, promising them a reward for obedience and suffering on earth. "You have been lied to," it whispered. "Heaven is not a place waiting for you. It is a state you must cultivate within yourself." This revelation was the most disturbing of all for Madonna. It suggested that the beautiful images of heaven that people hold onto, the idea of a paradise where all earthly pain is washed away, were illusions, comforting lies we tell ourselves to avoid facing the responsibility of how we live our lives now. Madonna struggled with this message deeply. She knew that sharing it would be met with backlash. For many, the concept of heaven is a source of hope and comfort, a promise that there is something better waiting after this life. To suggest that this idea is false or that heaven could be empty and cold would shatter the faith of countless people. Yet, she felt a powerful urge to speak out, driven by the conviction that this revelation was not meant to bring despair, but to awaken people to the reality of their own choices. It was a wake-up call. If heaven was indeed a reflection of humanity's spirit, then it was up to us to fill it with love, compassion, and genuine connection before it was too late. In her public statements, Madonna only hinted at this part of her experience, perhaps fearing the repercussions of speaking too plainly about such a controversial topic. She referenced the need for a spiritual awakening and emphasized that what lies beyond is shaped by what we carry within. But in private conversations and more candid moments, she revealed the full extent of her vision, describing it as the most disturbing aspect of her near-death experience. Madonna's encounter with this distorted version of heaven was a revelation that left her profoundly changed. It was a vision of a paradise that had become a barren, empty shell, echoing with the silence of souls who had lost their way. It was a disturbing message, one that suggested that if humanity does not change its course, if we do not learn to truly love, connect, and live authentically, then the heaven we hope for might be nothing more than a beautiful lie, an empty promise that dissolves into nothingness when we finally reach it.